Okay, let's go ahead with another lesson now. This lesson will deal with graphing, no, actually not graphing, finding the equation of a line that is perpendicular to another line, and also finding the equation of a line that is parallel to another line. They're going to be both in the coordinate plane. In order to understand this video more clearly, you should watch the first video that I prepared, which was finding the equation of the line. That's the title of that video, finding the equation of a line. So you should watch that one first before you can look at this video, because I'm not going to go too much into details. Okay, so in here we have the coordinate plane. And I would like to find, there's the x-axis, it's the y-axis. So let's say that there's a line through this coordinate plane, okay, which goes through this order pair and comes through another order pair here. So let's make the line here. Let's call it the black line. It's going like that. Okay. So this black line has an infinite amount of order pairs. Remember, each graph has an infinite amount of order pairs. There's an infinite amount of order pairs in this black line. And there's going to be a red line now crossing through this black line. It's going to intersect the black line at this order pair here. It's a red line. And it turns out that they are perpendicular to each other. Both lines are perpendicular to each other. Okay, so what we want to find out here is we want to find out the equation of the red line. That's what I want to find out. So how do I figure out the equation of the red line? The red line is perpendicular to the black line, and how do I find the equation of the red line? This is a problem that you'll see also, and you have to understand. Well, one thing that we have to understand is that perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocals for their slope. Okay, well, before we do that, okay, remember that the equation of a line is always y equals mx plus b. I'm going to decide to write this equation of the line in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Okay, that's how I choose to write it in that form. So, but they might give you different forms in the EOC, in the multiple choices. You have to be aware of that. The other forms are standard form and point slope form. If you want to refresh on that, go back to that video that I told you to watch first before you watch this video. Well, let's go ahead and find the equation of this red line in slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. So I'm going to concentrate on finding the slope of the line first. And then I want to concentrate on finding the little b, which is the y-intercept. So how do I find the slope of this line? Well, it's very simple to do that. Okay, there's a connection between both lines. Okay, their slopes are opposite reciprocals. Opposite reciprocals. This means that perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay, perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocals for slopes. Okay, now remember, how do you find the slope of a line? I like to use the method stack and subtract, and you need two order pairs for that. I know two order pairs on the black line, so I'm going to use them. This order pair is 3, 2. And that order pair is 0, 4. Okay, that's the y-intercept of the black line, and that's another order pair on the black line. So let's go ahead now and do stack and subtract to find the slope of the black line. So let's do that now. Okay, so the slope of the black line is going to be 3, 2. Stack them and subtract them, so we put them right on top of each other. It doesn't matter which order pair goes on top. So let's see here, that's the y, that's the x. stack and subtract to find the slope of the black line. First, 2 minus 4. 2 minus 4, that's -2. That's going to be my rise. 3 minus 0, that's 3. That's my run. From the middle school years, you remember that m is always the slope. In this case, it's equal to rise over run. It's always like that. My rise is -2, and my run is +3. Okay, so this will be the slope of the black line. Okay, so from this fraction, how do I figure out the slope of the red line? Because my ultimate goal is to figure out the equation of the red line. I don't want the equation of the black line, I want the equation of the red line. Well, I know the slope of the black line, and I know that they're perpendicular to each other, and I do know that their slopes are opposite reciprocals, so I'm going to use that to help me find the slope of the red line. So let's go ahead and do that now, okay? So the slope of the red line is the following. We'll take the slope of the black line, which we found by stacking and subtracting. It was -2/3. Okay, I want to find the reciprocal of that fraction. And if you remember from middle school, to find the reciprocal, you flip. So you put 3 on top, -2 on bottom. Once I find the reciprocal, this is the reciprocal, right? That's the slope of the black line. That's the reciprocal of it. I want to find the opposite reciprocal. So the opposite is just the opposite sign. Notice that here is negative. So what you do is you turn it into a positive. Okay. So the opposite reciprocal of -2/3 is 3/2. That's why I call it the opposite reciprocals, because the opposite sign. Okay, so it's negative, so the opposite reciprocal has to be positive, which it is, which is 3/2. Okay, that's the reciprocal. This is the opposite reciprocal. Now that we know our slope, okay, we do know the slope of our red line is +3/2x plus little b. Now what I have to do is I need to concentrate on finding the little b, because I already found the slope, so I want to concentrate on finding the little b. Okay, so how do we work with that? Well, let's go ahead and work on this side over here. Let me erase this part in here. Okay, so it's very simple now. So I write the equation. Y equals 3/2 x plus little b, which is the y-intercept of the red line. Okay. By the way, the y-intercept of the red line is right here. That is my little b. I don't know what that is. I'm trying to figure out what number that is. Okay, that's my little b there. I want to figure out what it is. Well, notice here that we have 3 variables. We have x, b, x, y, and little b. Okay, so what have I said before? The x's and the y's, they make order pairs. They make order pairs on the graphs. And there's an infinite amount. There's a gazillion amount of order pairs in this red line. So, with that said, there's a gazillion amount of order pairs on that red line, but I only know one of them. I only know 3, 2. This is the only one I know on that red line, so I'm going to use that one. X is 3, y is 2. And I'm going to substitute those numbers into the equation, and from that we can figure out what little b is. Notice that I have a denominator, which will make things a little bit difficult for me. But the easiest way to get rid of denominators when you have equations is by multiplying them out. So every term will get multiplied out by the denominator, which is 2. Times 2, times 2, times 2. Because that's the denominator, right? 2. So I want to get rid of it to make things easier for me when I'm working with this equation. So this 2 cancels out with the 2 on the top. That's a property of algebra. And that will leave me without a denominator. B times 2 is 2b, and 2 times y is 2y. So I have my equation now, which is easier to work with because I don't have a denominator anymore, and I keep working now with it. I need an x and a y. That means I need an order pair on the red graph. the red line, because I'm interested in the red line. I'm not interested in the black line. I'm interested in finding the equation of the red line, so I have to use an order pair on the red line. And there's only one that I know. Even though there's an infinite amount, I only know one of them. And that one is 3, 2. So you'll put 3 here for x and 2 for y, and you'll multiply them out. Okay? So we'll solve for b now, okay? So 3 times 3, that's 9, and 2 times 2 is 4. And this is a middle school equation now. So take away 9 from both sides. Cancels out. And that's going to give me 4 minus 9, which is negative 5. Okay, negative 5, that's equal to 2b. Divide by the coefficient. Remember, coefficients are always those numbers next to the variables. This is being multiplied here, so that cancels out. And my little b is this. That's my little b, negative 5 over 2. And I have found the equation of the red line because I know the m. The m was the slope, which was 3/2. And the little b is the y-intercept, which we just found right now, negative 5/2. So I'm going to write my equation in slope-intercept form. That's y equals mx plus b. And the slope is 3/2 times x plus the little b is negative 5 over 2. That should be equal to y. When you have a plus and a negative side by side, you erase them and you put a minus sign in between. This is the equation of the red line in slope-intercept form. Okay, so we're done with this part here. The equation of the red line in slope-intercept form. Okay, we can leave our answers with fractions like that. So that's it for this. Parallel lines. Okay, how do you find the equation of a parallel line on the coordinate plane? It's the same idea. You go through the same steps, except the parallel lines have equal slopes. So let's do one here real quick. Okay, erase all this down. Parallel lines have equal slopes. And that should help us out understanding here. So again, here's the coordinate plane, the x and the y axis. Let's see here, 2, and then here we have 4. Okay, so let's say we make a line through that black dot here. That's 1. Okay, there's going to be a red line now that it's going to be parallel. Okay, parallel to this other line. So let's say it's going through this order pair here. Okay, so let's see. Alright, parallel line. Okay, so this red line is parallel. Notice that they're parallel. The red line and the black line are parallel. They're never touching each other. So my goal is to find the equation of the red line. Okay, again, in this case, they're parallel lines. Parallel lines have equal slopes. That's the connection. That means if I find the slope of the black line, that means I found the slope of the red line because they have equal slopes. So again, this order pair is 2, 4, and that one is 0, 1. I'm going to use both of them to find the slope of the black line, which in this case is the slope of the red line. Because the lines are parallel. Okay, if the lines are parallel, they have equal slopes. So how do I find the slope of the black line? Stack and subtract. It doesn't matter which order pair goes on top. This is the y's, these are the x's. 4 take away 1, that's 3. Okay, and 2 take away 0, that's 2. That's my rise. That's my run. So the slope is rise over run, which is 3 over 2. That's the slope of the black line, 3 over 2. And I want to find the slope of the red line, which has to be the same as the slope of the black line. So the slope of the red line is also 3 over 2. Y equals mx plus b is the way I'm going to write my equation. I already found the m of the red line, 3/2. And I got to find out the little b now. Okay, notice that what we have here is what? Notice what we have here. Okay, we have an x and a y. We have a denominator. We don't want the denominator again in the equation. We got to get rid of it. The only way to get rid of denominators in equations is by multiplying them out in every term. The 2 cancels out with the 2 on top. I got 3x plus 2b equals 2y. I got an x and a y and a little b. The x and the y makes the ordered pairs. I'm interested in the equation of the red line, so I have to find an ordered pair on the red line, which I only know one of them. Even though there's an infinite amount of ordered pairs in this red line, I only know one, which is this one, and that is -2 comma 2. Let's take it to be like that, okay? So the x is -2, the y is +2. Put in -2 for x. Okay, I put in -2 for x, +2 for y. Multiply by 3, +2 for y. 3 times -2, that's -6, plus 2b equals 2 times 2, which is 4. Add 6 to both sides. The middle school equation, 4 plus 6 is 10, equals 2b. Divide by 2 on both sides, which is the coefficient of little b. 10 divided by 2 is 5. Little b is 5. Okay, so little b is 5. And we found our equation of our red line. Okay, the slope of the red line is 3 over 2. The little b of the red line, which is the y-intercept, is +5, which is in here. That is my little b, my y-intercept of my red line, +5.